Hey guys, it's Graham. What's cracking? Subject for today: why I quit reading certain books. By that I mean, like, what makes me put a book down. Over the weekend, I crossed 2,000 books read as far as keeping score goes. I use Goodreads. I've got some quibbles about the platform. It's not perfect, but for keeping track of what you've read and knowing some of the numbers, it's good. And I knew that that number was coming up. And one of the benefits of knowing how much you've read, in a sense, is knowing what to expect out of a book after the first couple of pages. Reading more has helped me to kind of appreciate what acquisitions editors go through. I knew one once, this was a couple of years ago. She'd been at it for 15 to 20 years, and she had, I think her count was that she had read 30,000 manuscripts. Now, granted, I doubt that that's 30,000 entire manuscripts, but if you're counting a partial and she's read the first one chapter, three chapters, five chapters of a book, that's a lot of reading. And hey, we enjoy our noticers. You learn to recognize patterns and you learn to set expectations. And when you read at that volume, like this editor had, you can really get a feel for what's coming next. And that makes it easier to reject something. Um, you can't bore a reader, and you can't, I mean, what's the way to describe this? Like, think of it as being in a competition with the reader. And if they can guess everything that's going to happen next, and they do, then they just won. And there are a few readers who are going to keep reading unless you can somehow give them another reason. But by and large, we're playing the law of averages here. And now that I've got a couple of thousand of finished books under my belt, like I feel comfortable saying after a chapter or two, if my expectations are being met and I'm unsatisfied, like I'm not going to keep going. I've read too many plain and straightforward pieces of genre fluff to not really want to invest the time in reading anymore. So the book that I started today, I'm not going to say the name, the publisher. You'll get some hints of the genre. I'm not going to say who the author is, but I was excited at first. I'd heard about this one a couple of months ago. I saw the cover art and I thought, this is cool. I could sink my teeth into this. The premise sounds interesting enough, if a little bit plain, and if it's going to be in territory that's been trod before, but I'll give this one a shot. And I finally got a copy of it this week, plugged it into Speechify, started listening, and I was stoked right out of the gate. And I thought, well, my second most popular video on the channel is that summary of Aragon, and I know some viewers are into my channel for the dragon content, and there were dragons in this book, there were dragon riders in this book. I thought, okay, cool, something that the channel will be interested in. And then things started to develop and unfold, and stonks go down. My excitement quickly died. And I thought, like, why? Why did it go so quickly down the drain? Well, there are two reasons, and the lesser one is content. That's more of a sticking point for me than it is for readers by and large. But in particular, this one didn't blend so seamlessly. There was a lot of profanity out the gate, and not only was it excessive in its own right, but it didn't seem to fit the kind of world that the author was conveying. A couple of weeks ago, when I read and reviewed The Big Sheep by Rob Cruzy, I talked about the components of that story, the pieces of it, but what Rob really nailed was the blending of it. There was no single piece that felt like it was an odd fit for what he was doing. It all felt natural and organic to the world that he had established. This one, by the look of it, by the aesthetic of it, was trying to be a dragon rider fantasy, and me just saying that, you know what to expect. But the characters were all talking like 21st century fifth graders who cussed too much to show you how tough they were. And that on its own would be obnoxious, but trying to mate that to a genre piece, a fantasy genre piece, it became even more obnoxious and noticeable. and it took me out. From there, a series of very predictable beats happened in quick succession. The main character was female. She was entering a trade that is predominantly male, and it very quickly became a matter of like, oh, the boys don't want me in this, and I'm going to have to work extra hard to prove them wrong, and it's not fair, but I'm the best and I'm awesome, and I'm going to pass my driver's test and get my dragon flying license or whatever, and I'm going to bond with a dragon in the hatchery, and it's going to be awesome. And then she goes to the hatchery to check on her egg, and there are some boys hanging out outside the hatchery, and they're snickering at each other like he, and they're looking at her, but they won't say what. They're just being typical like 1987 movie bullies. She thinks nothing of it. She goes and checks on her egg, and it hatches, and she imprints on the animal inside it before she can avert her gaze. It's not a dragon. And this is relevant because in this world, like if you're a dragon rider, if you're imprinted on a dragon, then there's some prestige and some class that comes with that. If you're imprinted on a different species, it's like being on junior varsity. And like, oh no, this prank was played on her, but now she's stuck with this different animal for the rest of her career. And I was like, okay, there could be something there. And then the way that the second chapter started, I was like, no, like I've got a very determined feel for how this is going to ride out for the rest of the book, and she's going to struggle at first, and then she's going to find her sense of self, and she's going to excel at this thing, and this prank is going to end up backfiring on the bullies, and she's going to be the bestest ever and prove them all wrong and ride off into the sunset, and that's it. I think the final nail on the coffin for me was that last year I tried reading that Fourth Wing book. Maybe it was the year before, I don't know. It's got a lot of hype. I listened to it. I got the audiobook from the library, and I listened to about the first 20 minutes of it, and I had the same reaction to that I had to this book today. And by and large, I am not the target audience. It didn't have anything in it to really hook me or to intrigue me, and so I punted on that. It's like, this book is very successful without me, doesn't need me, I don't want it, put it away. And I think once I realized that this book was really going to be from a publisher that doesn't write romantasy but wants to kind of capitalize on that audience, and started out with something that was situationally similar, like, oh, hey, I've got this thing, and I want to be X, but everybody tells me that I'm Y, and I've got deficiency Z, but I'm going to thrive and overcome, and we're all going to drop F-bombs on each other in this fantasy setting. Like, there's an audience to be served by that. I am not in it, and so I'm out. I've thought about the image I'm going to put on the thumbnail here. It's this meme that I saw the other day, and it works for what I want to say here. Part of it is knowing your audience. Sometimes you are in an audience and you see a book and you expect it to be in your audience, and then you try it out and you realize, no, it's in the wrong theater, or maybe I am. But at the end of the day, this was not for me. I could tell where it was going, and I didn't want to sit through several hours of it just to get to where I knew I was going. Now, there's an argument to be made that maybe the problem is me to an extent, because, hey, I've read 2,000 books. I've read a lot of things in a couple of genres, and that helps me to set those expectations, maybe unfairly. It's going to be less likely that people surprise me over time, especially the more that I read, the more I'm going to get a sense for what's common and what's the well-trodden ground. I'm also going to complain about people trying to subvert genre tropes and do something unique that falls flat on its face, and whatever. I'm going to be picky to an extent, but overall, I read to be entertained. And if I've already beaten the author and I understand what's going to come next, I'll just put it down and go back to nonfiction for a while, or maybe I'll reread something that I enjoyed before. I was talking to Kenny Parrish about that earlier this year, and he has supplemented a lot of his new reading with rereading things that he loves, and he's like, yeah, you talked about that, and I think you were right. It's like, there's something to it. And so I added a new category on my annual reading sheets list of what have I read, what have I read in print, what have I read in audiobook, and what have I reread. It's another category. Got some rereads on deck for this year. It's going to be fun. Anyway, got 2 other books that I want to finish this week. One of them is by George MacDonald Fraser MacDonald. I can't remember. He's a guy that I've heard of, but I've never read anything by him. And another one that's a memoir written by Piotr Rangel. So I'm enjoying that one. I think I'll try to finish that one tomorrow because it'll dovetail very nicely with the final episode of Irving on Washington. But anyway, hopefully you've learned something from that. Let me know what you will put a book down for. If you're reading something and you think you're going to like it and you find out that you don't, tell me why. Until next time, drive safe. See you out there.